The Louisville Metropolitan Police arrested two of the most vocal advocates for the Black community, and one of them actually happens to be a state lawmaker who has attempted to pass mild reforms for the police department. So if you really look at the details of this story, it certainly appears as though these arrests are more about retaliation as opposed to keeping the public safe. So State Representative Aaliyah Scott, a Kentucky lawmaker who sponsored Breonna's law, was arrested with her daughter, Aaliyah Scott, 19, and prominent local activist Shameka Parrish-Wright on the second night of protests following a grand jury's announcement that no police officers would face charges for killing Breonna Taylor. So part of the charge was because protesters were out past the 9 p.m. curfew. Protesters actually gathered at First Unitarian Church at 9 p.m. And that's important. That's an important detail here because curfew laws don't apply to the house of worship. But the police say there were no arrests on church property. Rather, protesters were damaging the public library, and that's the reason why they made these arrests. However, there's been a statement from a representative from the library, and they're saying the opposite. Let me read you the exact quote. We have heard that State Representative Aaliyah Scott and other peaceful protesters have been accused by the Louisville Metropolitan Police Department of vandalism of the main library, among other charges. We have seen no proof that the flare thrown into the library has done any major damage, nor that Representative Scott had anything to do with it, and find these accusations inconsistent with her character and the constant support we have received from her. So Emma, it certainly looks like there's some retaliation taking place right now, and it's absolutely disgusting. This is what happens in a fascistic society.
Exactly, and they have like the cloak of, oh yeah, vandalism, sure. They can kind of say whatever they want because they're the authorities, and that's what they've been getting away with for their entire careers. But the library is like, no, that's not the case. You guys are just basically targeting people who just go after you a little bit. I mean, I'm from New York. We saw it with Bill de Blasio, who's proposed the most mild reforms imaginable. Body cams, and yeah, you can't just stop and frisk Black and brown people on the street. And cops go after him endlessly, and he's been bootlicking, and they still go after him. So if you're a little bit critical of cops, and I'm not even saying that Aaliyah and her other lawmakers were like incrementalist here, but just as an extreme example with de Blasio. As someone who he ran on police reform, he decided to just be a little bit critical of them, and forever we're gonna retaliate against you. So this seems targeted. There's no way to know for sure unless there's a paper trail, but I'm not shocked whatsoever because this is how people this is how they behave, really. I don't wanna paint cops with the broadest of brushes, but it attracts people who are, I would say, kind of authoritarians in their own smaller micro sense. People who wanna put on a badge and a gun and lord over other people, and sometimes like high school bully types. And that's not everyone, I get it. But oftentimes it is, and you see it play out in situations like this.
Well, there have been instances, we've talked about them, specific instances on this show where police officials will speak out. They'll see some sort of behavior or some sort of ethical behavior within their department. They'll say something about it and they're retaliated against. There are actual consequences toward police officers who want to do the right thing and reform their department. And so it doesn't surprise me that cops would retaliate against protesters. I mean, we certainly saw that. We've seen multiple cases of local police departments coordinating with armed right-wing gang members. We shared an example of that on yesterday's show. And in this case, if you have a state lawmaker who's been trying to reform the police and she's out there protesting, she's an open target, unfortunately. And this behavior is absolutely disgusting. Because what the cops did here was essentially, like, not essentially, it's anti-democratic. It's just plain anti-democratic. It's meant to intimidate people. It's meant to intimidate lawmakers who are elected by their constituents to represent them and their best interests. And the question is, are we comfortable living in that kind of society? I certainly am not, right? But I think what's been proven over and over again, especially during this last year, is that the very people who claim that they wanted to protect our democracy the most are the people who care about democracy the least. And we saw that play out last night, certainly when Aaliyah Scott was arrested. Now, she has been released on bail, and we'll see how that case plays out, but it's absolutely shameful and disgusting that this is happening in this country.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.